let's allow Alex Bayer to overshare. How you doing, man?
I'm doing really good, Mikhail. Yeah, thank you for having me on your podcast. Really cool to, finally have a reconnect in a
Yeah.
serendipitous way. And it's good timing because, we're all captive audience, right? We're at homes and we're at home and we're around Zoom all the time. So it's, I think, a perfect time to be on Zoom and sharing with each other.
100%. You know what I've had in my head for the last couple weeks? How does it go? Walking on down the street, drinking my genius juice. I'm like, dude, that beat is actually pretty sick. To the listener, Alex put out a music video for Genius Juice, and it's actually a pretty catchy hook. I like that. Did you write that?
Yeah, so making me turn red a little bit. So yeah, so my friend did the backing for it, like the beats for it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a friend of mine. His name's Martin Blasik out of Hollywood. And he has a little studio. And then I came up with the lyrics. And what's really funny is, to overshare, right? To be with the theme here, is that when we taped the video, I just recorded the song. So
Oh,
I didn't even know all the lyrics to the song. Now I know it by heart because I listen to it like every other day. I actually love the song. So when we were editing the video, right, it's a video on YouTube. We used it for a fundraising platform. My friend who did the editing had to find scenes where I actually was mouthing the right lyrics. Literally, if you ask me now, which I won't do it for the entire time, but I could literally go through an entire verse rhyme without even tripping over it. So,
I'm gonna have to take you up on that one time. Maybe when bars start opening up again, everybody can hang out. We'll do a karaoke night, and that'll be the song that we choose.
now you're speaking my language.
I
Love
love
it.
that, man. So speaking of, recording this music, everything like that, like in my head, I was like, I wonder if he wanted to be like a hip hop artist when he was growing up, but I'd love to know from you, what were you like in high school?
Yeah, a Southern California Jewish man getting into hip hop, right? So,
The Beastie Boys did something similar. It's not too crazy.
yeah, Modest Yahoo, he's hip Jews.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I grew up in Southern California. I grew up in Palos Verdes. Went to school, at middle school in Palos Verdes. Went to high school in Palos Verdes. Went to college up in Central Coast. I've always been like a super conservative, introverted person, which a lot of people don't really, they're like, really? They don't really see that in me. But I'm a thinker. I'm very meticulous, very detailed. During the day, I'm very, very social. At night, I just shut it all down and I recover, right? And like people that are introverted recover alone. People that are extroverted, recover with others. So that's been my personality for a very long time. And I wanted to find ways to get out of my own shell, right? And so out of college, which again, like college, totally introverted. I had like two friends. I was actually proud of that because those two friends are still my friends to today. So quality over
That's awesome.
quality. And I wanted to do something to get me out of my comfort zone. So I decided to join a sales company called Aflac. And I'm like, if there's something that's going to force me to talk to people, especially because I'm on 100% commission, like I can't sit in an office. I have to like go out there and sell and like interact with people. That's when I started learning about how to interact with people, how to connect with people. I sat down with thousands and thousands of people selling insurance. And like, I would, and part of selling insurance is you ask a lot of questions like, how are you? Like what's going on in your life right now? Do you have any health conditions? How can I help you? What kind of plan is great for you? So I really learned how to have a personal connection with people and with that job. So it was really, really valuable.
When it's interesting that you say that you're not extroverted by nature, because for me, people tell me kind of the same thing. They don't believe me when I say I'm actually, I guess they call it an ambivert. But if it wasn't for a job at In-N-Out, I was doing the cash register. Like I had to see 1,000 people every day, and I was forced to smile every day. So it's interesting that you learned that there's just so much that you can learn from that at like a young age that kind of shapes that later on. You mentioned you mentioned in your song you were trying to find a track to Venus. I'm pretty sure. Were you big in science?
Yeah, I was staying with the whole entire kind of like mad professor, mad scientist theme, like with our brand.
Right.
What's interesting is I've always been right brain more than not left brain. So I've never been into science. I got a C minus in biology
Mm,
and every kind of science course. And I've really been more about connecting, more about sales, more about psychology and what, like, how people think, why people do what they do, what is the motivation behind someone. And, when someone does something, it's from an emotional place, right? Not from a rational place, because we're human beings and, we're primordial, right? Like we're thousands of years old, right? Our blood. So it's all psychology that really fascinates me with
yeah.
how people work, and really, most importantly, in my business, why people buy. Like,
Right.
why does a person want to buy our product? Why does a person want to invest in Genius Juice? So these are all things that I really consider. Anyway, going off on a big tangent, but it's very fascinating to learn human behavior.
So I love that about you, and actually, and the product that you've developed, actually, because you're not. I don't want to put you in a box, and I don't want this to sound a weird way, but you're not the typical like, all right, I created this health drink. It's good in nutrients and all of this. You get a lot of these fitness enthusiasts, things like that. But it seems as if you're more interested in like the emotional side. Or I mean, you mentioned you're more interested in the emotional side. Why are people buying, so on and so forth? So I'd love to hear like the origin stories of Genius Juice and really how it started. I know that you spent a lot of time. I think it sounds like you tried like hundreds of different coconuts before you landed on the one that you actually did land on. So what was that journey like for you?
It's been a long, really long journey. I started Genius Juice about 6.5 years ago, like in late 2013, and I discovered the idea from a friend of mine. I actually, believe it or not, which I was miserable there, but I had an office job, and I became friends with someone there. He eventually invited me back to his house with his family to have dinner, and at for dessert, his wife cracked open a young Thai coconut and scooped out the meat, poured out the water, and blended it. And I remember it was this like this vibrant white creaminess to it. And I'm like, this is amazing. I tried it. This is genius. Like this idea is genius, blending the whole coconut. So that was really the impetus of where I came up with the idea. But it also came from, I guess the true origin is that when I was doing sales, I would always take a smoothie with me every morning. I'm like, what is something
Mhm.
quick, healthy, that's not going to weigh me down, and I can like kind of nurse it for a couple hours, and it gives me sustained energy through most of the, for half the day, right? Without having to have a burrito or a burger, just something light and healthy and clean.
Mhm.
So I felt that was missing from every store shelf, a true, thick, creamy smoothie. So from there in 2014, I played around with different coconuts, like you were mentioning,
Right.
Brazilian, Mexican, Sri Lankan, and nothing had the taste of a young Thai coconut. Like Thai coconut was the best in the world, the sweetest in the world. And I'm like, if I'm going to do this right, especially in America where people have a sweet tooth, and got to go with the Thai coconut. So that's how we developed the product, developed what went in it. But still to this day, we still have ethics, right? And principles that we live by on the quality of our product. So we're not adding gums, fillers, emulsifiers. We don't add natural flavors. We don't add sugars to it.
Mm.
There's no water added. I mean, so many beverages add water to it. Like just, they water it down, 90% water. Ours is like 100% whole coconut blended and put into a bottle. It's so stupidly simple. That is genius. I should copyright that. Yeah.
Dude,
So
I
stupidly simple. It's genius. That's
I
good.
love how like branded you are. I watched a couple of your videos on YouTube, and like you dropped that a couple times, and I don't know, I absolutely loved it. It's cool that you kind of planted that
Right.
in my head for sure, and I'm sure if anybody else watches what you do, it's going to be the same thing as well. I was actually watching those videos, and I was like, oh, that kind of looks like the Philippines. I hope he got, I'm Filipino. I was like, I hope he got these from the Philippines. And then you said it was Thai. I was like, oh, that's fine too. That's all right.
Neighboring country, kind
Yeah.
of, not even. No,
Yeah.
they're not neighbors.
It's okay. I'm not good at geography. I wasn't good at science either. It's all good. I'm also right brained. So I got to ask, so when you started testing out all of these, like testing out, you finally came to the coconut that you wanted to use. You found the, not necessarily the blend, but the right coconut. How long was it before, how long was that process before you actually started bottling it and working on packaging and that sort of thing?
I mean, I move really, really fast because, like many entrepreneurs, I'm impatient. I'm like, I want to get this to market. I don't want anyone else to beat me to it, because when you think back to like 6 years ago, I mean, even to today, it's a really unique product. Like it's an amazing product because no one else is doing it, and it's so good for you. So like everyone's doing coconut water. Everyone's doing Zico,
Hmm.
Vita
Hmm.
Coco, Harmless Harvest, C2O, Taste Nirvana, all coconut water. It has not been reinvented or innovated in 15 years,
Hmm.
you know? And that's really, to me, the greatest starting point, right? Is you're taking something that's archaic and stale and adding a completely new twist to it, which adds so much more value to the
Yeah.
consumer, right? Like Tesla. It's like Tesla to Ford, right? Is
Right.
genius to coconut water. And so like in early 2014, we started doing flavor infusions. Like I think this is the funny part, in the story, is when we started Genius Juice in 2014, we had 14 SKUs or 14 different products. We had 7 flavors in 2 different sizes. We had an 8-ounce bottle, six. It was like all over the place,
Hmm.
you know, and a lot of money being spent in areas that really shouldn't have been spent on, the learning process, right? And we looked at all the sales data, right? And we're like, which one is selling? We're like, we kind of took a step back. Which one is selling the best out of these 7 flavors? We're like, there's berry, kale, apple. By the way, the kale one was terrible, terrible. Like I couldn't even drink it, and I'm the one who created it. That's a really bad sign, right? That it's not good. It's like, and then I think my friend told me, he's like, yeah, I had the kale smoothie. I was on the toilet. It really helped cleanse things out. I'm like, I want people to be sitting on a toilet drinking
That's
this
too
stuff.
good.
He's like, I was drinking it and then it just came right out. It was easy. I'm like, it's supposed to, fortify you, not
Right.
cleanse you, right? It's a smoothie. Something was wrong there. So we noticed that the top selling flavor, which is in every day and age in sales, go with the simplest flavor. Go with the one that's simple, clean, easy to understand, and not it won't confuse the customer. And it was the original. Coconut water, coconut meat. And by the way, that was a last minute addition to our line.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, we were like, we got to go with flavors because who's going to like pure coconut? It's too strong, right? Like who's going to really like that? We're like, in order to make it tolerable to the American, consumer, to the American palate, there has to be berries in there. There has to be banana in there. There has to be chocolate in there. And last minute decision, we're like, you know what? Let's just do one without anything in it. Just coconut. Maybe there'll be a few coconut fans that just want pure whole coconut. Ended up being 80% of our sales
Wow.
was the original.
Wow.
And we cut everything. We cut everything except the original in 2015. And for 3 years, dude, for 3 years, one flavor. We built the whole company,
Wow.
just the original. We also cut from 2 sizes. It used to be 8-ounce and 16-ounce.
Hmm.
One size, 12-ounce, for 3 years. And we built up the company to almost $1 million in revenue from one flavor. The last company to do anything like that, not to say I'm in the same level as this company, is Coca-Cola.
Hmm. I was
They
going
did
to
it with
say,
just classic Coke, one flavor, right? And they built it up to be billions in revenue. So I think the big thing is we learned simplicity is best, and building out and starting small and doing a crawl, walk, run to develop the brand in the right way. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what we think doesn't matter what my formulator thinks, doesn't matter what my investors think. It's about what do the consumers want, and it's listening to that and then pivoting yourself and being nimble to deliver what a consumer truly wants.
That's interesting. What the part that I find interesting is that you're talking about listening to what the consumer wants, and then I'm kind of relating that to your interest in psychology and what actually activates somebody to make a purchase or make some sort of decision in their life. Did you have anybody teaching you this along the way, or was it something that you intuitively started doing on your own?
It's interesting. I have three role models, like people, like if I would say like three people that have really influenced me heavily in my life. First is my dad. Second is Don Henley of the Eagles, because I love
Nice.
music and I really like, he's an awesome singer and musician. Third is a friend that I met at Aflac. This is a different friend from who I mentioned before. And I noticed that whenever we had, like sales organizations have like galas and gatherings where you're all like drinking and partying and like just having fun. I was kind of the guy that was there, not awkwardly in the corner, but definitely not the center of attention.
Hmm.
And I learned from my friend who actually mentored me. I mean, he was a very popular guy, very outspoken, very extroverted. But what I learned from him is being fun, being light, listening, but also being genuine, right? Like not
Yeah.
being fake. Like you can be fun and make people feel good by also being a genuine and very open and heartfelt person. And he had that balance going with him. And I hung around him a lot and I learned a lot from him about how to act in social situations, not to speak too much, which I
Mhm.
screw up all the time. Not myself. And also listening and like truly finding out what does a person want. That's where the human connection, comes in, when you're listening and finding out what a person wants.
100%. You can't teach that in a classroom, really.
No. So I learned that from him. But the big thing is people, there's a reason why people watch, whether it's American Idol or America's Got Talent or Shark Tank. One reason people watch it. Well, two. Number one, it's entertaining. Number two, you emotionally connect
Hmm.
with the performer or the entrepreneur. Like there's an emotional connection to a point where sometimes like I cry. Like if it's a really heartfelt story, I'm like, this is what a story. And to have that kind of connection and to connect with people on an emotional level is what I really learned along the way. And, without going into too much in the weeds on it, our brand represents that.
Mm.
It's a great product on the inside of the bottle, right? It's a serious product on the inside, right? It's simple, it's clean, it's organic, but we also have a lot of fun with it, with the branding.
Yeah.
Like you keep it half serious, half fun to like attract a consumer that is health conscious, but also they're going to notice it because it's screaming on the shelf. It has a big coconut head, that's staring at you versus all the other brands that are very sterile and very plain in our
Yeah.
set. So
Yeah.
you got to also say, I guess what I'm getting at, you got to separate yourself from the pack some way, somehow. And that was our way of doing it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. So I haven't had an opportunity to actually try Genius Juice yet. I meant to drive down to Whole Foods. It's just a little tougher these days for whatever reason, and
Well, that's
pick
why you
one.
can order it online.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I just didn't know if it was gonna get here on time. My whole goal was like, all right, I gotta get it and like do that. But I do distinctly remember seeing this multiple times before I even knew like who you were, I think even before I saw before we tried to connect a couple years ago at Expo West, because it's sitting on the shelf and it's like, dude, like Zico. I like Zico as like a water type of thing, but all of those bottles look exactly the same and you can't really tell one from another. And then you see yours with the Coco Stein on it, right? And like it definitely sticks out. And I don't know why I didn't buy it that day, but I remember distinctly seeing it for the first time. Um, Speaking of that Expo West, when we tried to connect there, and to the listener, a little context, like 2 years ago, we tried to do a quick interview at Expo West, which is a big natural products convention here in Anaheim. And it just didn't work out that day. I met with, or I think I tweeted with your publicist on Twitter or something like that. Didn't work out that day. No worries. But when we were doing the pre-interview before this one, you mentioned that you were really excited that it actually got pushed off because a lot has happened in the last 2 years. And I'd love to know, like, what are some of the biggest parts of like growth that have happened in the last 2 years? Like, were there any downfalls that you had to get through? I really want to learn about that story from you.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, I think the biggest challenge that we've had with our company the challenges we have not had is sales and branding and marketing. Like the product sells, they put it on the shelf, most of the time it moves. Not all the time, but most of the time. The challenging part has been production, manufacturing. And I think one thing I learned is that, when you get into this business, you don't really know everything. You learn as you go. When you do something that is actually real and like from nature, that isn't watered down, no chemicals, no additives, it's hard. It's hard as hell to do it.
You can drop F-bombs on this podcast. I just
Okay.
want you to know.
Well, yeah.
Save it for later.
I share it on LinkedIn, so I'm going to be a little more cautious. If you want to do the F-bombs, dude, you can do them you can do double for me.
Okay. Sounds good.
So like it was hard as hell or hard as F or whatever you want. Hard AF or
yes.
Nowadays on Instagram. Nowadays I sound like an elderly person. It's tough, man. Like when you're making a product that's sourced exclusively from Thailand, you're working with co-ops and farmers. The turnaround time is up to 3 months from when you place an order to when they have to crack open coconuts. We have a full facility in Thailand now. Crack them open, take everything out, put it into drums, send it over to our facility here in Orange County. I can explain it in 30 seconds, but it takes like 3 years to to set all of that up.
Sure.
So the biggest challenge, to go back to your question, Mikhail, has been the supply chain and just getting the product. Number one, getting the product here, but also getting the quality to exactly what we wanted it to be at. Mm-hmm. Like an experience, right? And taste, texture. Coconut is a real crop, right? It doesn't grow at the same rate year round. The water changes from high season to low season. The meat of the coconut changes high season to low season. So it's all about pinpointing and getting the optimum coconut, right, for your product, right? Because the taste could change in the course of a year because we're using a real product.
Of course.
And it's a challenge in the US culture because, as you know, like people want it the same every time. Like every time they open a bottle, they want it to taste the same, be the same texture. And early on, we'd have one bottle that would be thick and creamy. Then we have another bottle that's like thin and little bits of coconut meat in it. Mm-hmm. And no matter how much we explained, it's a real crop. It's not like it's available year round. We source it from Thailand. People didn't care. Most people didn't care. All they see is what their experience is. This is not the same as last time. Something must be wrong. I'm not going to buy this again. So the biggest challenge was streamlining it, getting the production right, getting the product right. And luckily, we have great partners, great manufacturing partners, great investors, and we've been able to work towards that to create a truly streamlined product. And I can't get into the big, how we made that happen. There's a lot of moving things around, producing at a certain time of the year, getting the right type of coconut. It takes a massive amount of work and planning to do that. But at the end of the day, if you want to make it big in this business, if you want to be in Publix, if you want to be in Costco, if you want to be in Kroger, if you want to be in Safeway, you have to have a streamlined, consistent product year round. Whole Foods, you can get away with it, right? You can have a different product because, the education's higher. Mm-hmm. People don't mind it as much. They're more adventurous in the Whole Foods. When it comes to a more mass market retailer, people are more like, I want it the same every time, right? Big expectations. So that's been the biggest learning curve is we're launching in Publix, Target. We launched in Publix, launched in H-E-B.
Nice.
Texas. Are you from here, by the way, or were you born in the Philippines?
I'm from here. I was born in LA.
Okay. So, but you travel. So
Yeah.
like, these are stores that are exclusively in certain states, but you nodded like, okay, some people don't know the stores. They never
Yeah,
been.
we deal a lot with natural products. So like HEB, Publix, like all these things. I'm like, all right, cool, cool, cool. Like I'm really excited to hear all that actually. It just shows how much you're growing and how much success you've had over the last couple of years.
Yeah. So we really crossed that chasm, right? And I just wanted to, some people don't even know these stores because they like haven't gone to any stores outside of California. But
Mhm.
good to know that, you're definitely more experienced in this, you know a lot about the industry. But these are great, as you know, these are like top-notch stores.
Mhm.
They're a big competitor to Whole Foods. Publix rules in Florida.
Yeah.
HEB rules in Texas.
Right.
People are so loyal, right, to those chains in these states. Whole
Yeah.
Foods still has a great share and a lot of loyal customers, but it's hard to compete with a big retailer in one state that just dominates that state. So we've had great retailer partnerships, but it's been interesting to cross that chasm to go from Whole Foods, which we're still dedicated to. We still take care of them. Like we love the partnership. We're still growing with them. But to grow a brand, you got to go beyond that.
Right.
You got to go to a mainstream retailer. And that's really our next step now, is doing that. So it's fun. It's fun to see that a product that's so artisanal and healthy is now in a store at $3.99, and someone in the
That's
middle
not
of
bad.
Florida or Texas can buy it.
Yeah.
You know, and they can be healthier too. They can feel better as well.
Yeah. Man, that's incredible. And before we like move on in the conversation, congratulations on just getting that far. I've had the opportunity to interview a ton of people, work with a lot of people who are trying to get a product off the ground, and just the idea that you've been able to do this in a relatively short amount of time. Like if the first time you packaged was in 2014, actually that's 6 years now. Wow. I thought it was 2018 just now.
Yeah, well, there's more to the story, which probably will be for like a part two or something. But we had to reboot,
Mm,
so that was another challenge. Is we lost our we had a co-packer, we had a place making the product, and we
mm,
lost that relationship, and we had nowhere to make the product
wow.
for a year. So from 2014 to 16, we were making it basically there on and off. And when they stopped making it for us and we dissolved the partnership, we had no product for almost a year.
What was the motivation to keep going after you put in that much work and lost that partnership? I feel like I went through a business partnership separation too, and I felt like the world was crumbling down, but luckily I pushed through that. But what was the thing for you? I can only imagine the heartbreak and all of that with all the work that you put into it.
Yeah, I mean, I had a real serious decision, which is like, do I just move on because it's not in the stars and it's not meant to be, or do I keep going? And I think two things came to my mind. Number one, the product is too good to not do it. Like if our sales like sucked or something, then I would be reconsidering, right? Like
Right.
maybe I should go to CBD or something, something hot, like coconuts yesterday. Let's go into let's go into collagen, or I don't
Yeah.
know.
I'm laughing extra hard because these are literally like two of our biggest clients is like collagen and CBD. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Would you have thought like even 5 years ago that collagen, which is used in Beverly Hills, would be like
You
a
just
main
drink it.
a main staple? They would drink it, you would take it
Yeah.
as supplements, and they just got bought by Nestle, Vital
Yeah.
Proteins, for like hundreds of million. I'm just like, wow. So that shows you that in this industry things are pivoting so quickly. Like,
Hmm.
so you got to have your finger on the pulse. But going back to it, like going through that, I'm like, I can either give up and start something else, or I know the sales are really good.
Hmm.
I know the product is selling. I know that people want it. The problem we're having is supply. So if I can get the supply strained out, if I build it, they will come, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, I got to rebuild this freaking thing. And so I ended up getting new partners in Thailand. They invested in us. They started making the product for us. And the owner said, I'll never forget this conversation, because we were like, we were on our way out, and I was on the phone with him, And I've known him because he supplied coconuts to us already. And he said, Alex, like your drive, your passion, your perseverance, I know that if we pick you up and we get you going again and we're backing you, this could be successful because of the product, but really most importantly, you and your team. I believe in you. My investors believe in you. We're going to make this happen together. And it was so beautiful that someone, like in my time of need, said, I see what you're doing. I acknowledge you. I know you can be successful. You just had a bad break. And I want to give you that second shot to make it right. And we got the second shot. We were in 0 stores in late 2017, 0 stores. And then we got back into production in November 2017. And now we're in 2,400, 2.5 years later. So, and we got on Shark Tank, we got more investment money. So it goes to show you, sometimes when you're at the brink of like total destruction or failure, that's when you push through and when you find the most strength to get through that,
I love that, man, so much. And it's funny that you mentioned that in some of those, like American Idol, maybe it's Shark Tank. For me, sometimes it's Undercover Boss. Like when I watch those things, like I get really worked up. I have cried a couple times during Shark Tank. But like, it's cause that hustle, what went into that. And they finally get this moment where everything seemed to work out. And in your spot, it would be that reinvestment from your Thai partner, Taiwanese partner. Is that right?
Thai, yeah.
Thai partner. And it's just like, it's good to hear that. And it's rad. Like, I can't tell you enough, like even, maybe we're halfway through this or something, but the energy that I get from you and how hard I know that you work toward this is just incredible. And I think it's just, I don't know, I'm excited for that moment for you. And, I'm just excited about the success that you've had so far. But I do have a question. When you got on Shark Tank, where were you in the business at this point?
So the episode was taped in mid 2019, and we were I think we were in about 700 or 600 stores, 600 to 700, and we were under $1 million in revenue. We were at, I think we were at about 500,000 a year in revenue, Wow. And we just released the flavors. We had 3 flavors instead of just the one original. So we were really, really early stage. I mean, like a lot of the brands on there,
Sure.
Whether it's Mush, my buddies at Mush, I know them really well. They were at 200,000. Now they're at 15 million, Super Coffee.
Yeah.
They were at nothing. And now they're at 70 million in revenue. So, it worked out. It worked out well because we needed that exposure. We needed that bump just to get people to buy the product, not only online, but also in stores, to go out and find the product. So we were very early stage. And the one thing, just a shout out, if any of the Sharks, tune into this. I mean, I actually have Mark Cuban's cell phone number. So I can text. He gives it out to everyone, he does. He's like, this is my cell phone number. I'm like, but yeah, it's just another number that you never answer,
right. The burner.
Yeah, exactly. But like, yeah. So I think reaching out to him, just to really say thank you, because they love the product on the show. They genuinely, like, that was the big payoff for me. Like, I know what I'm doing is right. Like, it's been validated before, but to go on a show, to have 4 people that have never, 5, I think, that have never tried the product, including Rohan Oza, who is called the brand father. As you know, he created and helped create Vitamin Water and Smart Water. And I mean, he's a legend.
Yeah.
They all loved the product. They loved the concept. They loved how it was functional, how it was a smoothie, how it was a complete twist and innovation on an existing category. So that was a big payoff to me, that they loved it. And the other thing is, I didn't get reamed on the show like most people do.
Yeah.
Like that, I think, not to toot my own horn too much here, but like the fact is they were not able to stump me.
Right.
They kept throwing questions at me like, dude, how about this? Oh, refrigerated distribution, it's so hot, like Rohan saying that.
Yeah.
And I came right back at him and said, you've invested in refrigerated brands.
Yeah.
you know? So it's all about not being, not being an asshole, but definitely standing your own
Yeah.
and being able to handle objections and stand on your own and really just be powerful in that moment. And I felt like I delivered, and it was not easy because I was probably having a nervous breakdown the day before. Like,
You
you know,
couldn't
it
tell on the show for sure.
can't tell. I mean, I wasn't like that bad, but I definitely was like nervous. I was stressed out. So just the anticipation was really brutal because you're like, I'm going in front of 3 million people. What if I screw up? What if what if they hate the product? I mean, it can go into a negative area, right? They can say, I hate the product, and your sales actually go down.
Right.
That's how powerful the show is, right?
Mm.
So I was really nervous about that. But then I said, you know what? I've been through way worse. I've been through way more stress. I was down to nothing, and then I built it right back up. So I'm just going to have fun. I'm going to be myself. I'm going to share our story and inspire them. And it worked.
What type of impact has Shark Tank had on your product, your brand, your company?
It's been huge. It's been huge. I mean, everything is fleeting, right? Like you can't depend on the Shark Tank bump forever.
Mm-hmm.
But in the first like month or so, not even a month, within 2 weeks, we got $250,000 in sales just online.
Wow.
So, through geniusjuice.com, plug, and, and Amazon also.
Yeah.
But go to geniusjuice.com first.
Yes.
It's better for us. So that our online sales skyrocketed in the first 2 months after Shark Tank aired. It kind of came back down to earth, but it was definitely higher than it was from the start. And it's been sustained for the last like 4 or 5 months. Also, it attracted investors to come in.
Mm-hmm.
As again, no matter how much I can tell someone the product's great, we're growing, we're in new retailers, when they see that your brand is on Shark Tank, it just elevates the excitement so much.
Yeah.
Because it's a proof of concept, and they know that a lot of people are now demanding this product. And luckily, all 5 sharks said on air, I love this product. This is good stuff. Mr. Wonderful held up the bottle and said, like, this is amazing. I love this.
Yeah.
So you can't ask for better advertising, really.
Yeah.
So it was a very immense bump. But like anything, you can't rest on your laurels. It's going to last for 2 to 3 months. But then it's what you do with that, from that success and how you keep it going, right?
So what are you doing with that right now? Because that episode only aired a couple months ago, right?
5 months ago.
5 months ago. Cool. How have you kind of built off that success? How are you handling it right now? And what are some of the plans that you put in place to continue to expand?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, what's interesting is like, when we first aired on Shark Tank, we used it as a crutch.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh man, we're on Shark Tank, got to bring our product in. Now that we're at a new stage of growth, we don't really have to lean on it as much anymore.
Nice.
Like we have the momentum now. We're at almost a 3 million run rate. We were at 500,000 when we were on the show. So now we're growing. We have momentum. There's proof of concept. And what's great is retailers are now approaching us to bring in the product, which is cool for a change. We don't have to keep knocking on people's doors all day. But we're still being I think the big thing and kind of getting into COVID is we're really focusing, retail is our number one, no matter what. We're going to do more in sales and retail. But selling online has been really, really crucial for us. When Shark Tank aired, it was before COVID hit, right? It was in January.
Right.
And when COVID started really escalating, all those people that found us on Shark Tank and online and bought online, I mean, we got 4,000 new customers overnight, from Shark Tank. All those individuals were rebuying it and repurchasing on there. And we now have a digital marketing manager, a CTO, and he is retargeting those people to continue getting them to buy the product. And I think what's great is that we have a product that's actually really, really good for people.
Yeah.
Like it's anti-inflammatory, it's filling, Like, it gives you energy. Like, it's everything that you need during a time where everything is uncertain
Hmm.
and your health could be at risk. It's like the perfect thing, right? So we felt proud that we're not like selling, Monster or something, like we're selling like something that actually will help people, not crush people, right?
Yeah. Or
And
that you had to do some cheesy like rebrand and say like immunity boost, and it's like you're an asshole right now. You actually had something from the get that was always good for somebody.
exactly, like we weren't selling like Genius face masks or anything like that, So, or
Yeah. Or genius coconut hand sanitizer.
yeah, that's what I was thinking, like coconut oil sanitizer. Yeah. Oh man. So yeah, so we stuck with our roots. And I think like if you look at any success, someone is doing something right for many, many years, and then like the right conditions come in to allow that to just blossom, right? And that's exactly what we did. We stuck with our morals, with our ethics. We worked incredibly hard, and the opportunity came in, and we took what we already had and worked on and built as a foundation, and we just built it up and up and up.
100%. Um, I want to talk about that real quick because I think that's super important. I mean, you started in 2014, correct? So you're coming at, or you had maybe your 6 year anniversary, which is relatively similar to us actually, which is kind of funny. You spent, you tried hundreds of different coconuts before you landed on the right one. You found a co-packer, lost a co-packer, got a re-up with your investor, got on Shark Tank, all of these things, and now I feel as if you're finally maybe seeing some of the fruits of your labor. Can you talk about patience throughout that whole thing? Because a lot of people think it's an overnight success, and if I had no context on you before, maybe you feel that, but like there was like 5 years, if not, there's like 5 years where maybe nothing really moved around, and finally you're taking off, type of thing. So how have you been patient the whole time? How do you not, like, I don't know, how do you not give up? How do you
Go
not
crazy.
get, yeah, go crazy? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think I think part of it is knowing that it's going to be a marathon, not a sprint, and then having a long-term goal and working backwards from that. I mean, it's literally as simple as that. Like our goal is that we want to build Genius up and sell it
Hmm.
to someone who hopefully continues to keep the brand the way it is, keep the product the way it is, and not devalue it. And we'll
Hmm.
be very careful about selecting the right partner for that. So it's kind of like my goal and our goal collectively is to, be acquired by X date. How do we get there? So when there's measurable goals along the way, it makes it more attainable,
Hmm.
and you have a purpose, you have a finish line.
Right.
There's a very, very quick story that like always really stuck with me as far as like business planning, just kind of getting into I don't know, the Gary Vaynerchuk or whatever, or, I don't know. But like there was a set of Navy SEAL, I think it was Navy SEALs, right? And they had the Navy SEALs, the captain or the commander said, I want you guys in training camp to run as much as you can, just like until you can't run anymore. And these are trained Navy SEALs. They're ripped, greatest. They're perfect. I mean, their lung capacity enormous.
Hmm.
Uh, of I think it was like 50 people or 50 Navy SEALs, only I think 5% ran 26.2 miles.
Wow.
Okay, because they were just running, right? There was no finish line. It's just keep running until you're too tired to run and you collapse. And a lot of them didn't make it, right? They didn't go 26.2 miles. But then you look at a marathon, right? Where you have old people, kids, people that are not in as good of a shape as a Navy SEAL, and they almost all finish the race, like 90% finish the race. So anyway, my long diatribe here is really just if you have a finish line on where you want to aim for,
Hmm.
it motivates you every day to actually get there, and setting small goals along the way, you know? So that's what you got to kind of psych yourself up for that. You got to be like, okay, I want to be at 5 million this year. How do I get there? I need to do this, and this. I need to hire this person, this person, this person. I need to raise this much money to actually get there. And then you get there, like, what's next? Right. And then you get to the
Yeah.
next goal. So I find that setting many goals and many milestones, as cliched as it sounds, is kind of a psychology thing where it keeps you going and keeps you motivated versus trying to think about too far ahead,
Hmm.
right? And it just becomes really daunting and really intimidating. And I don't like to, I like to think ahead, but I don't like to be intimidated by the future, right?
Hmm.
So I focus on what can we do now to achieve our goals, and that's really worked. As far as being patient, I'm impatient. So even though it's been 6 years, I'm still very impatient. So it took a long time to get here, but now that we have all the nuts and bolts in place, I'm like, okay, now I'm getting impatient because I want to push this harder. Like I want to get this to 20 million. Now we're at 3 to 5 million. Like I want to get this to 20, 30, 40 million. So I'm looking at the next steps there. And I guess part of me is never satisfied, right?
Yeah.
That's a good value to have.
It's
But
a
I also,
blessing and a curse.
it's a blessing and a curse because my mentors say, they're like, Alex, you just explained that you got into these new retailers, you raised money, whatever, whatever we did, whatever I and my team have achieved. And my mentor said, you never celebrate, you know? So I think I have like Steve Jobs-itis or something. He never celebrated. He's like, good job, team. Now get back to work.
Yeah.
So I like that. I like a part of that, but it's always, I think, very important to like acknowledge yourself and celebrate and take a step back, take a breath back, take a step back, take a breath, and just look at everything that you've accomplished. I think that's very important to have perspective.
I love that, man. That's super powerful. Um, and I just love the mindset behind it and everything that you shared today. So thank you so much for that. Before I ask you the last question of today, Alex, if somebody wants to connect with you, how can they find you?
There's really two ways. Well, I would say just one way, by email. So you can go on, log on. What am I talking about? Go to your mail client. I'm losing my mind here. So my email is alex at genius juice, like genius, like a genius, juice, like a juice you drink, .com. Alex at geniusjuice.com. You can also email hello@geniusjuice.com. And I think what I want to do is I'm going to do a promo code just for your listeners.
I love that.
So it needs to be a name that's easy, that someone can spell when they put in the promotion code. I'm going to do 30% off for 2 days whenever you air this episode. It's going to be live for that day and the day after. But what name should I use that's fitting to your podcast?
It can be Mick, M-I-Q-K.
M-I-Q-K.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Won't be too hard for anyone to.
No, they'll know.
Okay. Your followers will know.
They'll know, right, guys?
Better know.
My mom's like, yeah, I know. I love that, man. Thank you so much for that. That's so cool. And thank you so much for everything that you shared today. Last question, man, I got to ask, when is volume 2 of Coco Stein's tracks going to drop? Like, we need another single out soon.
I know. I've been thinking about that because of the how big the exposure was from the first video. So yeah, I think I got to do it sooner than later for sure. I got to ride the wave. So my answer is I don't know, but I'll comfortably say by the end of 2020, just to give myself some runway here, that I will have. Maybe I'll do like a Christmas album, or something.
Oh, that's smart. I like that.
Here comes coconuts. Here come coconuts. Drink from the coconut now. Or I don't know. I'll think of something.
My mind is blown. That was amazing.
You have an emoji with the mind blown. You just put that on the screen.
Yeah, 100%. To the listener, thank you so much for your time and attention. We really appreciate it. If you love the episode, please give us a 5-star review. And if you didn't like it that much, feel free to stick it to us, but subscribe anyway, because we're going to have a ton of incredible people just like Alex Bayer back in the show. Thank you so much, Alex.
Thanks, Mikhail, for having me. It was a pleasure.
100%.